Welcome to episode 271 of the Whatnauts review show, where every week we pick a story and we talk about it. It could be a movie, TV series, anime, manga, comic book, audio fiction, all kinds of entertainment. We watch it, read it, listen to it, and then we come back here and talk about it. My name is Melissa Wilkinson, and I am joined, as always, by Kyle Springer.
Good morning, Melissa. How's your weekend been?
It's been okay. I'm getting over a sinus thing. You can probably hear it in my voice. So I've mostly laid around and watched a bunch of movies.
You and me both, because we, one of our other podcasts, we postponed it one day for one thing, and then I started to get a little sick, and I was like, do we want to just skip this week?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what we did, but I'm feeling a lot better. And this weekend has been pretty good. Can't really complain. Played a lot of Starfield. I kind of have to start picking up the pace on that because Spider-Man 2 is about to come out, so I have to play that one next. We've been drinking. I bought some wine this weekend while I watched this movie. So we'll talk about that in a sec here. But yeah, it's been a good weekend. And then I think today after the podcast, we're going to go see A Haunting in Venice.
Me too.
Hell yeah. I'm excited.
Sunday afternoon haunts.
Indeed. Melissa, wine.
Wine?
Are you a wine girl? Like, is that your go-to drink? What do you usually get?
I mean, if I'm out at a restaurant, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I don't have all of the cocktail makings at my own house. That's too many things to have. So I typically order a cocktail when I'm out on the town. But for at home, I like wine. I think wine is very fun to buy. There's so many kinds, and you can get a good wine for very cheap.
Sure.
That's typically what I do is I go to my local grocery store and I'm like, what has their Schnucks recommends Schnucks expert pick sticker on it and is like $9 to $15. And I've led a great life so far.
There you go. Okay. See, I'm not a wine person whatsoever. Alcohol wise, I'm more of a beer person. I'm more of a whiskey person. That's my liquor of choice. Tequila's great too. Vodka's great too. But I couldn't ever really get into wine. I don't know why. I think it's also just lack of knowledge. And like you said, there's so many of them. And like it has its own culture that I feel like is more well known or like permeates at regular everyday life more so than like beer culture or whiskey culture. It's like wine is the thing. I don't know. But I bought some wine to watch this movie we're about to talk about, and I have it here.
The wine is here.
Apothic Pinot Noir.
Hey!
It says it's a Pinot Noir with a dark side.
Oh my gosh.
It's from 2001. It's a soft and indulgent wine from California. But Melissa, let me read you the back. It says, Pinot Noir has been described as the minx of the vineyard, an elusive grape that captivates the senses. Apothic Pinot Noir features layers of vanilla, dark cherry, and raspberry, and leaves you with a soft, luscious finish.
Luscious.
So, yeah, this is what I was sipping on, and ended up kind of liking it. It wasn't too bad. Not my favorite. I've had better wine, or I should say, I've had wines that I liked because I thought they were easier to drink. And this one, very dark, much stronger taste. Was kind of very worried because over the holidays last year, my mom came and brought some wine with her, and she left one of the bottles with us. And it kind of sat there for a little while, and we were like, I guess we should just drink this because neither of us are really into it. So, yeah. And we tried it, and it was one of the driest wines
Mhm.
that I have ever
Yep.
had, and I could not do it, but I did. And I was worried with how dark this one was, and like the smell was so pungent that I was like, I
Mhm.
think this is gonna be one of those like dry wines that I just cannot do. And no, it was actually not half bad. I liked it.
That's been my experience. We're going to talk about the movie of the day in a little bit. But I started drinking white wines cuz I thought these must be lighter, simpler, better for a beginner. And then the first time I ever tried a red wine, which was just like a $3 red blend from Trader Joe's, I'm like, this is what people have been talking about when they say it tastes buttery. Like
Huh,
red
interesting.
wines, most of the, I'm sure they've got drier varieties, but I think your average red wine is smoother and white wines are more minerally and it's got
Yeah,
that
that makes
sort of
sense.
sharpness to it. So I
Interesting.
think the Apothic Red Blend is a great way to start. I know I've had that one before. A mid-range red blend is what I get
Yeah,
most of the time.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, ended up having a couple glasses of that while we watched the movie that we're about to talk about this
Yes,
week, which is Sideways. Melissa, take it away.
Sideways. We are continuing Shame Timber, Accidental Paul Giamatti edition. Shame Timber, every year, you and I take the opportunity to pitch movies that are on our personal lists of shame, either because they're a major cultural touchstone or something very specific to us. Like it's a movie that's been on our list of, oh, I've got to see that thing. I think I'd like it. And for years and years, you've just never seen it. This is the time to cross those off the list. And Sideways was one of mine. As a preteen, I watched Ebert and Roper at the movies like every Sunday morning. Same time slot as this show, I think. I think that was 11 a.m. on a Sunday is when it played on my local WB affiliate.
Huh.
So I grew up with that for one period of time. Like when I was a kid, I was really into the Lord of the Rings movies. And
Sure,
that
yeah.
got me into every movie kind of around that. Like that was the first time in my life I watched like awards and like what other big things are coming out. So there's a lot of movies from like 2001 to like 2005 that I just have stuck in my head from like
Hmm.
reading Premiere Magazine or watching Ebert and Roper or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And knowing that I was still a little too young for a lot of these movies. And Sideways was one of them. I'm like, when my parents will let me rent an R-rated movie, I'm gonna rent that one from Blockbuster. And I think I'll like it. And Blockbuster came and went. I can watch as many R-rated movies as I want. And I had not yet seen Sideways.
Drink all
And
the
your
wine, watch all the R-rated
yes,
movies. Melissa, you are
right.
living it up.
It's a I love it. This is my simple indulgence is my $10 wine and movie where you see some butts. And coincidentally, last week your Shame Timber movies were all stories of hip hop history, and we watched
Mhm.
Straight Outta Compton, also featuring Paul Giamatti.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Sideways. So I don't think I knew about this movie until you mentioned it. Um, yeah, part of the reason why I ended up picking it was because accidentally Paul Giamatti back to back in Shame Timber.
Mm,
Why not? But
yeah.
also we've kind of started a little bit of a theme here on the review show. We've talked about a manga called The Drops of God, which is all about wine. We talked about that manga a few years ago, and then kind of unbeknownst to us, Apple TV did a live action adaptation, which
Mhm.
we've not talked about really here on the show, but I've watched it and it's fantastic. I loved it a lot. Uh, I also, on my own time, recently watched a Netflix movie called Uncorked, which is about a guy learning to become a sommelier. So I feel like I've slowly been educating myself, at least in the bare minimum of wine. But the fact that we've talked about drops of God here on the show, I was like, well, if we make it two things about wine on the show, then we kind of have a theme that we can hey, we have something to be like, hey, if you liked this, go check out Drops of God.
2 episodes to recommend in the review show catalog.
Absolutely. So yeah, I thought that one would be interesting. Also, a secret third reason why I picked this. I'm not super familiar with Thomas Hayden Church. That's his name, right?
Yes.
So I know him as Sam Mayan from the Spider-Man movies. I know I've heard his voice in a few other things, but beyond that, I know he's a pretty well-known actor, but I really don't know much that he's in.
George of the Jungle. He's the cad boyfriend in the 90s Brendan Fraser George of the Jungle.
I don't remember
the lady
that.
leaves.
I only remember Brendan Fraser.
I watched that movie a lot as a kid. And so when I'm like 13, 14 years old and I see Ebert and Roper review this movie, I'm like, this stars Lyle from George of the Jungle and Marty Wolf from Big Fat Liar, 2 of the great kids movie villains in an adult movie. Like, I think that was a good bridge for me to get into this. Give me an adult scenario showing me faces I know from popular children's films.
Yeah, but I'm just not super familiar with his filmography, and I guess for some, I guess because of the genre that Spider-Man kind of falls in, I don't really see him as a comedic actor. And that's not to say he is not. I don't know his filmography, but I'm just not familiar with him in that sense. And so when you pitch this and I was like, it's kind of a comedy, I was like, huh, weird. This guy in a comedy? Interesting. Okay, let's do this one. So that's why I picked Sideways.
Yeah. To round out the cast, we also have Sandra Oh, well known from many titles. I'm very.
She's super young
back
here.
to. I think back to we're both Lost fans. Grey's Anatomy started airing like just after Lost, so I remember a ton of those Grey's Anatomy commercials. So Sandra Oh has been a presence in my life for like 20 years now. I'm happy to have her. And then you asked me, what do we know Virginia Madsen from? I don't know what you know her from, but I realized why her name resonated with me. She's in Candyman.
Yes, I looked up her filmography as well and realized the main reason that I don't really recognize her even less than Thomas Hayden Church is she's often in horror movies and stuff like that. When she came on screen, I did recognize her, so I've seen her somewhere out in the void. But yeah, even less familiar with her because I'm baby and I don't like scary stuff. Even though I'm going to see A Haunting in Venice after this, which I consider more of a mystery than a scary.
I don't think that's scary at all.
Movie.
I would be very surprised if A Haunting in Venice includes a jump scare or a gore, or if you say Hercule Poirot's name 5 times, he shows up with a hook hand.
Anyways, yeah, I thought the cast was great in this. This was a movie that I didn't know what to expect, and I think it had all kinds of directions that it could have gone. I want to hear what you thought of this first, since this was on your Shame-Timber. What were your thoughts on finally watching Sideways?
I enjoyed it. This is a really nice movie vacation, which I found is one of the main reasons I will watch a movie. If it's just like actors I like to see, a place I'd like to go, but there's something aspirational about the film. And even if our two main characters are to varying degrees sad sacks, I don't think there's any life choices you should emulate in Sideways, except for the love and enthusiasm of wine. And they're up there in like the Napa Valley, Sonoma, the Northern California wine country. They're playing golf and just doing like adult man things. Guys being dudes.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Guys being dudes. Yeah, man, so all in all, the movie was not really my cup of tea or my glass of wine, I guess you could say, but it was still good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But yeah, it feels like it's almost being pulled in a couple different directions, not in a bad way, but to make an interesting mix. And that made me think, oh, the movie is a wine too. Like
it's a blend.
Right. Yeah. You guys will see from the synopsis, but part of this movie feels like it wants to be The Hangover, or like that style of comedy, right? Where these two men, instead of a bachelor party, it's like a bachelor weekend in wine country.
Just the two of them.
Drunk shenanigans. They meet a bunch of women. They are hungover. They get chased around golf courses by bikers or whoever. They leave their wallets in these people's houses that they slept with, and then have to go infiltrate the house to get their wallets back. Like all this crazy stuff. It feels like it wants to be The Hangover, but that's also such a small part of what this movie is. It's also kind of wants to be the like romantic comedy, but then doesn't quite get there. Like it's almost a tragic movie. Like you said, the main characters are kind of sad sacks, especially Paul Giamatti's character. And at the end, it does have a somewhat hopeful ending. But it is still like somber. It hasn't reached that hopeful note yet, but it's on that trajectory, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But yeah, it's not the romantic comedy that you think the like poster might lead you to believe, or the description might lead you to believe. But then it's also, yeah, like it's a movie about wine and the complexities, the intricate nature of wine, and the care that needs to go into these grapes, and how Paul Giamatti is just a grape that needs special care. He is
special
the Pinot grape. He is the elusive Pinot grape that needs attention and care and stuff like that. And that's it. But then
that's my new Bumble bio. Care for me as you would a grape.
The last interesting note that is in the of like what makes up this movie is that the soundtrack almost makes it sound like it's a crime noir detective story. It's real jazzy. It is jazzy. Yeah, and it's like in a way that you expect him to be like, so there I was in Napa Valley, and she walked in with a glass already in her hand. She must have been on her second one by now, right? Like, yes, it sounds like it needs that kind of narration, but it's not. It's not a crime noir. But in the movie, he describes that the novel he's making at times feels like a detective story. He names an author. I'm not sure if it's a real person or not. But he's like, it's kind of like one of his novels where it just kind of ends up going nowhere. And I was like, okay, in a weird way, that's what's kind of also happening in the movie. like we get like it's that's not to say that nothing happened in the movie, but it's all like it's not a traditional plot structure. I feel like that makes sense. I'm getting into some stuff that we should talk about once we're into spoilers and stuff here. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting blend of stuff. Yeah, there are some really just genuinely hilarious moments. Some great like heartfelt emotion. Some yeah, it just an interesting mix all around for sure. I recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So, do you want to do like a plot synopsis for those who may not have checked it out yet?
Paul Giamatti plays Miles. He is a divorced, like, middle school English teacher who's been struggling to get a novel published. And his best friend is Jack, who is an actor who's had like one recurring role on a soap opera. He's been in some commercials. He hasn't really made it big. And he's about to get married. And the two of them go up to wine country for a bachelor's weekend, just the two of them. And Jack decides he's kind of a Lothario. He's like, I need to get laid again before I settle down and marry this woman. So he's like looking for dates while they're up there for like a week. He finds this woman who he starts an affair with, and then Miles, that woman has a friend, a local waitress at a restaurant that Paul Giamatti has gone to every time he's been up there in wine country. And Jack's like, she likes you, dude. She likes you. You should make a move. You're single. Like, you could use some action. Come on. And Miles just like can't really get out of his head and get over himself and open himself up to her and have a sincere conversation. So it's about these romantic foibles and all of the drinking and all of the metaphorical discussions of wine and what people are grapes.
Yep, exactly. This felt a lot more along the lines of the kind of movie that I am referring to when I say this is the film where they're sitting around talking about life, sipping tea. Like, this is kind of along those lines, right? Where there is like the metaphors for life, and these characters are in the conversations they're having about wine and the different varietals and stuff like that. And then it's just like, and then Sad Sack might have a date at the end, right?
Yeah. This is a movie where Sad Sack learns to not overindulge, but genuinely treat himself to something good. And I like that arc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the film also has a nice bookend that I will mention here. I think it's worth pointing out that the film starts with someone knocking on a door, and it ends the exact same way. Someone knocking on a door. So
always
interesting stuff. Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah. We will take a quick break for housekeeping, and when we come back, we will dive more in depth to Sideways. Here, start discussing it a little bit more. But we will be right back. Here at the Whatnauts, we make multiple different shows, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. If you enjoy our shows, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is the best place to show your support. For just $1 a month, you can get early access to episodes, and at our $3 tier, a Patreon exclusive podcast, The Pilots Club. You can even get a shout out and thank you on most of our shows at the $5 tier. And if you're one of our patrons already, thank you so much. It means the world to us. You can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, as well as your favorite podcasting platform of choice. When you type in The Whatnauts, all of our shows will pop up right there. Just don't forget to give us a nice rating and review if you like the shows. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch for video versions of the shows, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, we have merch. If you want to grab yourself a shirt or a hoodie or a mug or something else, Head over to the whatnauts.com/store to pick up some merch today. All right, we are back. A big shout out once again to our Patreon supporters. We love you a lot.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Speaking of, over on the Pilots Club this month here in September, we got to talk about the pilot episode of Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. This is on Max. You guys can go check it out there. I think season 2 is currently airing or just wrapped up or kind of right around there. Yeah, I grew up a Los Angeles Lakers fan during the Shaq and Kobe era, so I always got to hear about the like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. Always got to hear about all of that stuff. And this was an interesting show that was a dramatization of that, but is also kind of a comedy, which I was not expecting at all.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Good stuff with that. Go check it out.
I want to mention that next month's Patreon bonus episode in the Pilots Club, we are watching The Amazing Screw-On Head, the animated pilot for a show that never got picked up. So it's just this one episode. I think it aired as a one-off special on the Sci-Fi Channel. The Amazing Screw-On Head is based off a Mike Mignola comic. It is animated very much in his comic style. And it is about a sort of android who has a head that can like screw on and off into different bodies, and he uses this for different secret agent missions. But that character is also voiced by Paul Giamatti, so we're keeping the streak going.
Amazing. Amazing. Speaking of Mike Mignola and Hellboy, that's what we've been doing for our end of the month specials. We just started it last month. And so next week, right here on the review show, we will continue our coverage of Hellboy. More about that at the end of the show. Let's see. Also, over on the captain's log, like I kind of mentioned earlier, with us postponing the captain's log and me getting sick, we did not have a captain's log podcast this past week. But our previous episode, Speed Beef, in which we pondered the question: Would you eat caffeinated food? Like if a cheeseburger had caffeine infused inside it somehow, would you eat that? Is that the next big thing? Are we geniuses? Maybe. I'll find out on the captain's log. And then still not much happening over on the Reactor Core right now. I know we got a few movies coming up that we may cover. I know Ahsoka is about halfway done right now. We may do a end of season 1 spoiler cast on. Who knows? Keep an eye out for some interesting stuff coming up with that. Yeah, I think that's kind of about it for housekeeping right now. So yeah, let's get into spoilers. All right. Melissa, where do you want to start with this movie?
I want to start with, I was surprised at how unlikable both of the main characters were. Where
Yes.
Jack is like, I need to get laid before I get married. A plot point I've seen in other movies, sure, but then it's usually it's more tame. It's more like, I want to go to a strip club again before I get married. Not, I want to have a several days long intimate affair with this woman without telling her I have to go get married on Saturday.
Yeah.
So he's got that behavior going on. And Miles, when they drive up to wine country, on the way they stop and they see Miles's mom. She's like, it's her birthday tomorrow. I really feel like I should stop. And like the trip just ends up getting postponed. It's like, well, I'm going to drop off a card. We're going to stay for dinner. We're going to stay the night. And then she tries to talk him into like going out to brunch with, it seems like maybe his sister in the morning and her family. And then they leave before that happens. But that's the one thing they sneak out on. They sneak out on the mom while she's just asleep on the couch because like he took her bed or whatever.
Asleep
He
while
steals
kids
money
next
from her.
door is on the television.
Yes, yes. Of all the things to have casually in the background playing on the TV while the mom falls asleep on the couch, it's Kids Next Door, which indicates to me that she fell asleep the night before watching Adult Swim. That mom was watching Cowboy Bebop.
Were they ever on because you know how the WB had that like Saturday morning like Cartoon Network takeover for a while? There was even like a Toonami takeover on WB. It could have been something like that. So she could have been watching WB.
Watching Dawson's Creek or something.
Right.
Either way, I'm very curious as to that mom's TV watching habits. That was a very odd inclusion.
Fell asleep watching the Oblongs.
And then I'm looking at it like, does this have meaning? Is like Paul Giamatti number 2? Is Thomas Hayden Church, is he number 4?
Good Lord.
Is there symbology in this? But Miles goes upstairs and he like knows where his mom's secret stash of cash is, and he just steals several $100s from her before they go up to this wine country weekend. And this is early. This is like 15 minutes in. This is our protagonist, the man who's like, I gotta stop and see my mom. It's her birthday. I'm taking $400.
Wild. Yeah. I think that the thing that stood out to me about the beginning of the film was just kind of the shenanigans and just kind of the chaos of everything that's happening. Right. Because the film starts with someone waking Miles up to be like, hey, you need to move your car. The roofers are here for the apartment next door. Your car is kind of in the driveway they need to get in. So he has to move that. Realizes he's slept in by like a few hours. It seems like is majorly late for like a weekend or week long trip out to to wine country. He's on the phone being like, I'm literally leaving right now. Smash cut to him on the toilet reading a book and then showering afterwards, and just like, oh my God.
And then
this guy's a mess.
He gets there and you see him lying to, he's going to pick up Jack at his like future wife's like parents' big mansion. He gets there and he's like lying to everybody like, gee, you wouldn't believe this traffic.
Yeah. And he does that. Then they set off, to go on their adventure, and immediately is like, hey, we're stopping to go see my mom. Like, what? On top of that, Thomas Hayden Church's character, Jack, you said his name was, right? Jack reaches in the back as Miles tells him, like, hey, I got us some special wines for the trip. And he opens one up in the car and just starts pouring it and is like, okay, cheers, let's go. And they're drinking and driving. And I'm just like,
so reckless.
Okay, this is the movie that I'm this is part of why I'm like, okay, this is The Hangover. Like, this is what I now know to expect, right? Yeah, like that, and the scene where he's like crawling on hands and knees to sneak back in the house to get the wallet at the end.
My favorite
Good
scene.
Lord, yeah, amazing. But like it's such an interesting start, because I feel like, for what I just said, like a movie that almost feels like it wants to be The Hangover. This is a lot tamer than that, but it feels very 90s. Like, it feels like the 90s version, like the 90s Oscar winning
it was nominated for Best Picture, and this is back when they only had 5 Best Picture nominees instead of the 10 they have now. So real pedigree on this. I want to mention briefly, this was directed by Alexander Payne, who has a new movie coming out in November starring Paul Giamatti called The Holdovers. Did you get a trailer for The Holdovers when you saw Oppenheimer? I
I
got
don't
one.
think so. Maybe.
It's a Paul Giamatti plays like a professor or a headmaster or something at this like boys boarding
Oh,
school.
yes.
And over
Yes.
winter break, there's one kid who doesn't get picked up. So Paul Giamatti just has to spend time with him.
Yeah.
But big,
Yeah. Now
big
I
buzz
do
for that one. This could really
I
be
do
Paul
remember
Giamatti's
that.
shot at the best actor Oscar.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Um, but yeah, just like with that chaos, and then yeah, immediately seeing him like stealing money from his mom, all that. So yeah, these guys are just dirtbags.
Mhm.
They are unlikable. They're sad sacks. They're just like, why do I want to follow them? And I think that's part of the like central question of this movie here is like here's a guy that seems very very unlikable, and here's another guy who's charming, right? Like
Mm.
he wants to have fun, he's kind of a himbo, right? Like he's just out there to have a good time, he's about to get married.
Absolutely.
And like even though he's charming and likable in that sense, like he's all like he's of the mindset of like, this is my last week of freedom, which is just
Mm.
like, dude, you don't have to get married if that's
Yes.
your mindset. Like, what are you doing? What's going
Mm.
on? Yeah, like you focus on Paul Giamatti's character, and I think the movie, in a weird way, is like trying to convince you to like him and be like, no, let's take a closer look. Sure, at first, at first glance, he's kind of a sad sack, right? He's lonely,
Mm.
he's single, he's kind of stuck in his life. You can tell he's not really going anywhere. Um, but that's kind of the point of the movie, is that he's so into wine, and when you hear him describe like why he's into pinots so much, he's describing himself. he's
Yes.
he's
Yes.
describing this grape that is very finicky. It needs a lot of attention and care to really open up and bring it out. And if you don't, it kind of goes nowhere and does nothing. Um, and like that, I think is maybe where I think where I say this movie is maybe not my cup of tea, because it's a little bit more on the surface than I would like it to be. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Like, I kind of want those metaphors to be even more subtle.
Sure. I
Um, but like once he had that conversation with her of like, the Pinot is like this, it needs attention and
mm.
care. I was like, oh, he's the Pinot grape. That's easy. Like,
Yes.
okay, I understand the movie.
My Enneagram is Pinot Noir. Like ENF Pinot Noir.
Right? Yeah.
um, when he gives that speech, it's not clear if he knows I
Right.
am the
Yes.
Pinot Noir. I am talking about myself. If he's like really trying to hide behind that, I want to open up to this woman. I'm a tricky person to deal with. If I talk about myself in terms of this wine that we both love, I've got a metaphor she can latch on to for, I am interested in you, but you really need to work on drawing me out. Or if he doesn't even realize, oh, I am the Pinot Noir, it's me. But she's doing some of the same stuff. And it seems
Mhm.
more to me that she is purposefully using wine metaphors to reach out to him. Like they both drink this wine together, and he's been drinking and drinking. Like he loves the wine. He's got such an enthusiasm and a sincere enjoyment of it, but also he just drinks so much of it over this trip. He is truly drinking to excess. He's drunk a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
the two of them had this wine together, him and Maya, is the girl who likes him. And he's when they drink it, she says, "Oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. There's too much alcohol." the alcohol of it really takes away from the sweetness that this wine I think could have otherwise. And he's like, really? I like it. So she's, I think, using that as a barb at him, like, hey,
Yeah.
I like you, but you're not behaving well. Like, I need you to sort of
It was
back off. I know we like the wine together, but like, you got to stop drinking so much of it.
Yeah, like he's able to connect with her over wine and discuss it, and he really enjoys that. But it was a problem with the Drops of God manga, right? Where every single conversation had to do about wine. There was nothing in there that was like, so do you watch Kids Next Door? Like, right there's no discussion of anything outside of wine. And yeah, that's kind of what she's saying here. Like, hey, let's take the wine out of this, right? Like, I get that you like wine, alcohol is fun, yay, thumbs up, right? But
Mhm.
you're also just a sweet guy in general. Like, tell me
Yeah.
about your book. Like, what are you writing about? Yo, you're a teacher. Like, what do you like about that, right? He's not engaging with her in those
Mhm.
ways.
Mhm.
And yeah, right. I don't think he necessarily knows that he is the Pinot rape. He does not see it. He does not understand it. He's just kind of focused
Mhm.
in on wine. Good.
Yes. Yeah. And he's got this, even if he's not aware of it, this view on his favorite wine that is tied to himself. And then after he gives that speech, Maya has her speech about how, yeah, she doesn't really have a particular favorite wine. Like, she really loves wine overall for the stories behind it. She's like, I like to think of everybody who tended the grapes and everybody who picked them, and how there's so many different factors that can go into this. Like, what was this day like when the grapes were picked? What temperature was it? What was the sun like? What was the soil like? She's like, there's so much story going into this wine that I am drinking right now. And that's part of the enjoyment for me, which is really beautiful and a lot more general, a lot more sort of benevolent. She has a less, even if she's a less self-centered attachment to wine compared to how Miles thinks of it as like a self metaphor. Her reaction to it is a lot less metaphorical. Uh,
Interesting. I think to think about her side of that whole conversation, the thing that stuck with me was her mentioning how she got into wine and that it was her ex and he was into it. He had this massive collection and was like super duper into it, and she liked all the stuff that she got to try, but she very quickly learned that she had a much more specific palette, not necessarily narrower, but like just like she didn't need like half of this
yeah.
collection. If she narrowed it down to like these are my top 10, like she'd be good, right? Like she knew exactly what she liked and what was, she was like, I have better taste than my partner does here in this sense. He just kind of goes for everything.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's signaled like, yeah, she knows what she wants. She's very specific in that sense. And yeah, the way she is into these lines where she thinks about the people involved and their story is like she's kind of signaling to him like, hey, I want to know about your past relationships, how you grew up, what your parents were like, where did you live, like all of that stuff. And it is this like, hey, I am willing to take the time to learn about you and care for you in the way that you actually need to be cared for, because I want to know that whole story, right?
Yeah.
Um, which is yeah is I think they are that perfect match, but he doesn't really know it yet. He has
Hmm.
so much baggage. He has a past relationship. He's not over her yet. all sorts of stuff. He almost ruins the whole week when he says, well, if you're coming to the wedding, I won't be. And hangs up,
and
it's
he's
like
the best man.
Exactly.
Which is
like, did you think about that, dude?
Yeah, like the fact that your ex-wife is going to be at this wedding at which you are the best man, seemingly like the only groomsman of any kind. It's like it seems like a very small social circle.
They had that one scene where
Jack.
they had their foreheads together, and it's just like Paul Giamatti like looking in between them, just like
it's me, your third wheel. Hi.
Yep. I'm still here.
I'm gonna be around. But yeah, the fact that he's throwing away like the best man. Like, you don't do that to your best friend just because your ex-wife is going to be there. I also think it's very funny that when he talks about her, he's like, oh, she had such a refined palate. Oh, I miss her palate.
It's not her. Like it's not the time they spent together. It's not the like adventures that they went on.
Or not even like he talks about her palate the way he would talk about like her boobs or something.
Right?
What palate?
Man, the palate on her. Yeah, and like they have a montage when they have their first like double date here. It's Jack and Sandra Oh's character. I don't remember her name. Stephanie. Yeah. And then Miles and again her name. I just had it in my head.
Maya.
Yes, thank you. I'm terrible with names. And kind of immediately they seem like it seems to be going well. Of course, he immediately starts talking about wine and stuff like that. But it's like an hour and a half or 2 hours into this date, just randomly gets up, drunk dials his ex, and is like, well, fuck you too.
Yeah.
And it seemed like such a weird move for him in the moment. I get it. He's still hung up on her. But it was just so strange to me to have to like the film is showing me that he's having a good time. He's into the conversation. It's not like he's closed off in that or like not participating in the date. And then just randomly out of the blue, it's not like someone said something that reminded him of his ex. He just does it. And it's just like, huh, so this is you. Okay. I see. Interesting. But yeah, he's just like, I think the film on one hand, like tries to show you, yeah, he's not a great person. He's kind of sad. Not even that he's like not a great person. He's just so sad and depressed and stuck in his life, which is something that Jack keeps saying.
He's like, don't be a Debbie Downer this week.
Yeah, maybe not in the best terminology of how he has it. It was like, fuck therapy and all of that stuff. Go to therapy, please. If you need it, go check it out, please. But he's just like, dude, you're so depressed all the time, which is why we need to get you laid. Like, that's it. That's the solution here. But then, as we've been discussing, it's just like, no, he's not actually a bad person per se, even though he did steal money from his mom. Maybe he is depressed, but he's just someone that needs work. He needs someone to look after him, to be there with him and to help him out is essentially what it's saying, which, hey, therapy. That sounds an awful lot like what he needs. So yes, please continue.
I want to talk about the relationship between Jack and Miles, because we don't see Miles, not that Jack is making decisions that should be supported. Like, I have to go date this other woman for a week before I get married. I can understand that Miles is like not there to help his friend do that. but you don't see him really supporting Jack in any other ways. But you see Jack, like Miles has been writing this novel, he's finished it, it's like under consideration, and he's like, yeah, it's going through like a second round of review with this one publisher. I don't, it's so hard to tell. I don't think I'm going to get in. But Jack is telling everybody, like, he's got a book that's going to be published. And you learn that the book,
Yeah.
it's very long and kind of meandery. So it really gives
great. Jack, when he hands her the manuscript and it's in this show box, and she's like, okay, thanks, and starts to walk away, and he goes, oh, no, wait. He reaches back and gets one more box that's just as
which
big.
Which is the second time this year we've had that joke after like Chidi's doctoral dissertation and The Good Place. That's also an entire like paper ream box.
Oh my God.
Like the fact that it's so long and meandery, I think. At first, Miles is talking to Jack about the book, and he's like, did you like the new ending? And Jack's like, oh, I love the new ending. And he's like, I didn't write a new ending. You didn't read it. But then when you learn how big and just messy the novel is, you're like, kind on Jack's. Like, I understand why he didn't read the whole thing. But regardless of him actually reading the manuscripts or not, he supports his friend. He almost sort of blindly supports his friend. Like, oh, you wrote a book, it's going to get published.
Well,
like
I mean,
it's maybe not.
He's trying to get him laid, so he's yes. not like it's under second round review. He's like, no, it's getting published. Here we go.
Right. He's trying to talk
ladies,
up his
check
friend.
him out. Published author right here.
This is my form of wingmanship. It's not the best method, but he is still supportive of Miles in a way that we don't see Miles giving back to him. Like, no, buddy, you're really gonna book that NBC fall pilot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You would get that new soak and spray commercial this year. I know it, man. Yeah. Good God. And the way that his mom was so enamored by him. Oh, I loved you in that show. I gotta go and take my face on. Look what I'm dressed in. She was a riot. I loved her.
Mom was fun. I didn't know the mom was part of the movie.
But yeah, he's continually supporting him in a certain way that like is a good friend. And then at the same time, like I don't think Miles really understands him. He does not understand the kind of help that he's giving him. It may not be the help that he needs per se, but excuse me. When he's trying, so when things kind of blow up with Stephanie, and they then go to that restaurant and they meet that other waitress, and Jack ends up sleeping with her, and then has to cut out early because her husband comes home, and he ends up leaving his wallet in her room, and his wallet is the thing that has the wedding rings. They need to like sneak back in and get the stuff. When just for all of the stuff that has happened to them, his face getting messed up.
Yes.
Jack is he's scheming. He's trying to stay one step ahead of things, right? Like, oh, okay, what kind of injury does this look like? Okay, a car crash. And then like schemes this way to like, okay, we need to make it look like it was a car crash. Hey man, how about I drive this next stretch? Like, and he's just like, no, why not? He's like, oh, come on, man. And then he does, and then immediately tries to crash it into a tree. It like dents the front bumper up pretty good, but he's like, we need to make this look a little better. And so like tries to like get a cinder block on the gas pedal as they are not in the car to hit the tree again, and it just veers off and misses the tree completely and falls into a ditch.
Which seems like it still gets the job done.
It still gets the job done, but the moment of them just being like, oh no, it's just great. It's so good just to like see like the camera behind them, the tree, and just to watch the car veer off completely.
Yeah.
Like, that is also a great metaphor for what is happening in this movie. Like, they are trying for this like tried and true, like, let's just have a great weekend. We're in wine country. We get to taste all this amazing wine, have great food, and then things just veer off to the side and end up in a ditch. But like, he ends up also supporting Jack at the end of like, hey, don't drive off until they see the car, right? So he has his like wingman qualities about him.
Yeah.
But not in the best way, right? Like, keeping this big secret that he had this affair and did all of that. Yeah, it's an interesting movie for sure.
I want to talk about the thing with the rings, because
yes, please.
It seems like Jack likes this woman he's about to marry. I don't remember her name, but it seems like it's more practical. Like, yeah, she seems like a good choice. Like, her dad has this company. In between acting gigs, I could work for her dad's company. That's a nice safety net. Like, he maybe doesn't love her, but she's a smart choice that he believes he should make. And then he goes and he has this affair, which does, like, he doesn't tell Stephanie, yeah, I'm getting married. This is just a fling. Like, he gets so involved with her life. He meets her mom. He meets her daughter. He's talking about moving up there. And then she finds out you're getting married on Saturday. So he's really, like, he's sort of betrayed his future wife. He's betrayed her and all this stuff. But when he loses the rings, the one thing that we know specifically his fiance asked him for is like, I really want these special rings. They're like made out of this metal and of these engravings and these stones and all that. The desperation in his face when he's telling Miles, like, this is the one thing she asked me for. I have to give this to her. I cannot let her down. I have this much virtue in me. Her one specific request, I must be able to grant. I have to give her that. And then Miles looks at him and is like, I understand. This I have to meet you on. This I have to support you on. The one thing that is, this is the one contract of our friendship. If your wife needs this and you need this, I'll do it for you. Leading to him sneaking into this woman's house after her husband came home after the night shift.
What an amazing scene. This whole scene is great.
When it's like, you can understand that, like, if the guy's friend knocked on the door and is like, look, all I need is his wallet. Like, you might give him the wallet. Like, you're mad at the guy who slept with your wife, probably. But I would believe that this man would have enough sensibility to be like,
such an awkward.
Well, what's the point in me keeping his wallet? Like, maybe I take the cash out of there, but like, I can't deprive this man of having his driver's license or whatever. Here, fine, take the wallet.
I mean,
if he just knocked on the door, there wouldn't be that much of a confrontation, probably.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be that much in the wrong to knock on the door and just say, look, can I have my bud's wallet? Instead, he sneaks around. They're playing like loud music inside the house. He goes in through the back patio door. He's padding around. He's full Harriet the Spy stuff. And then he sees that couple loudly having sex in the bed. And it seems like the husband, like, kind of gets off on the idea that his wife had this affair with this other man right there in their bedroom. And then he has no choice. He just has to run in there while they're completely screwing, just like tip, 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 grab the wallet, run out the door.
Yeah.
Just like
snatch and grab and go.
Right. I just have to hope they're distracted and they don't see me when it's like, no, you're right there. This is a fully lit room. You're 6 feet away. So
right. Yeah.
So the guy chases him out, fully nude. He like runs up against the car. He's like chubby old belly and his dick are pressed against the car window. And then when that guy's yelling at him, I'm like, that voice sounds familiar. Do you know who that actor is?
I think I do know who it is. He's from Lost.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take the boy.
Yep, I thought so. So. I recognized him.
Yes. Yeah. Great character actor MC Gainey.
We're gonna have to take the boy. Good stuff. Man, like that whole scene was incredible. That is the the hangover hijinks that I like expected. I didn't know how that scene was gonna go. Like I almost wondered if he was still gonna like inch and crawl in on hands and knees to like sneak it and get the wallet and just be like halfway in and get caught and like, who the fuck are you? But yeah, God, the whole scene, because even when he runs out of the house, Jack is like in the passenger seat sleeping. Like you think he'd be like just ready to go, waiting. This guy has no care in the world. He's just sleeping, passed out. Like, oh God, it's so funny. The other scene that I really wanted to talk about though too is when they're on the golf course and they're just golfing real slow, taking their time. Miles is always about to swing, and then Jack will say something to like stop him or mess him up,
giving him advice he didn't ask for.
The people behind them like swing on them, and the ball comes up, and they're just like, "Hey, what the hell, dude?" And so then Miles turns around and hits the ball backwards towards them. Great scene. And then they get in their little golf cart to drive up to Jack and Miles, and Jack he takes out the biggest club he has and just starts running around like a monster, like a wild man, and screaming like one too. Just he looks like the goofiest motherfucker. It's just great, genuinely cracked up, laughed out loud, hilarious. But then, like, to contrast all of that, we get the wedding scene and we get the confrontation between Miles and his ex, and his ex's new husband. And it kind of goes as like not as pointed at, like it was not a great confrontation, but probably about as good as it could have gone.
Yeah, she is civil to him. Seems like she still cares, like just wishes him well. I want you to have a good life. I'm not mad at you. I don't have any grudges. I've totally moved on.
Yeah. Even the new husband is like real civil, and Miles comments on that of those. Oh, huh. Like he's surprised at how like, hey, I'm gonna leave you two alone. Yeah. It was great to meet you. I've heard some great things, but I think you guys need some time to talk. And he was just like, that was a big move. He's
built this man up in his mind as an enemy. Yes. And now he meets the guy and he's like, oh, you don't think of me as your enemy. How can I do that to you then?
Whatsoever. Yeah. And this is where she reveals that, like, yes, not only did I remarry and we didn't really tell you, but I'm pregnant. And he, like, you can just tell in his face, he's just like, like, I hate this. I hate everything about this. This
was the last straw. He mentions they've been divorced for like 2 years or something. He's like, I always kind of imagined we'd find our way back to each other. And he had this really fancy bottle of wine, like this true gem in his collection that he's like, I was saving this for a 10-year anniversary. And when he's talking to Maya about it, she's like, you better open that up. Like, now is when that wine has aged to the perfect state. Like, if you let it sit too much longer, it's not going to be the same wine you've been imagining it to be. It's going to lose its
Mhm.
quality. Like, you're kind of on a timer here. And I think he offers that to the ex-wife, like, "Hey, you want to have a drink?" And she's like, "Oh, I can't. I'm pregnant." So it's not only the fact that I've truly lost this woman. There's now zero chance she's ever going to come back to me. But when he was talking about what he really connected with her about was the wine. He loved her palate. The fact that she physically like shouldn't be drinking. He's like, oh, we don't even have that.
Yep.
There's truly nothing, no interaction points between me and this woman anymore.
Absolutely. And then smash cut to him drinking that 61 whatever
Mhm.
wine it was in KFC as
Well,
he
yeah,
eats his 6 piece chicken strips, right?
yeah, he takes it to a diner. He's gets a burger and fries. You can tell he's like snuck the thing in and he's pouring it into like a styrofoam soda cup.
Great.
It's still wearing his like best man tuxedo. I don't know if there was like it was just a wedding and not an like there's no reception or it's one of those he's not I don't
I
know if it's
wonder
he's
if he
abandoned
maybe
the
skipped
wedding.
out on the
Yeah, I don't
reception
know.
or something. Yeah.
It's not clear if he is skipping out on something that Jack expected him to be at, but he seems at peace. He is finally treating himself to this wine. Like we have seen Miles overindulge in things, but never treat himself well. He doesn't have a lot of care for himself, even though he's frequently engaging in his favorite activities. It's not in a way that
Mhm.
is like a treat for himself, you know?
Yeah. And it's interesting to me because that scene in almost any other context would be like, okay, you've now officially hit rock
Yeah.
bottom. You're drinking wine in your local diner, not one that the diner had, one that you brought and you snuck it in, and you're like eating it with just
Yeah.
like the most normal greasy cheeseburger, right? Like that pairing also has to be terrible.
It might work, you know, you get like a
I mean,
nice
who
rich
knows?
beef
But
burger, and then I don't know what sort of wine it was, but I mean, and wine is not only to pair with fancy foods. Wine is for a cheeseburger. Wine is for a fry or McNugget. You can find the right
wine is
one.
for bagel bites and pizza rolls.
There's a wine for that. I don't know which one it is, but there is one.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and like that is not his rock bottom though. That is his like, okay, from now on, you start
Yes.
treating me good. Like this is the
Yeah.
trajectory upwards, but it's also not his lowest point now going up.
Yeah.
This is the okay, I've restarted. We're starting no.
Mhm.
Here we go. We're starting out on a good
Yes.
foot, right? Like
Yeah.
drink
I
some
need to
wine and a
stop
burger.
Stop waiting for like I need to reach a certain milestone in my life before I allow myself the treat of this fancy wine. When Maya points out, now is when the wine is ready to be drank. He has to sort of
Yes.
accept I have earned it now. Or like maybe I will continue to earn the treat that is the wine right now when it is ready for me. It's about like seizing the opportunity.
Yeah. And then it seems like some time has passed. Um, and it seems like he's kind of kept in touch with Maya, but not too often. She leaves a message for him that is like, hey, thanks for your letter. And I think by time it's reached the like, I will write you a letter stage, I think is when she is like, okay, now I think you're ready, come over to my place. Like, let's see if something
Yeah,
can
yeah,
happen
she
with
calls
that.
him when she's like, "I finally finished the manuscript." Like, she's the
Yeah,
only
that
one
too.
who
Yeah.
has read the entire thing, and she's like, "I liked it." Like, she really read it. It seems like every little hint that Miles puts out there, every hook of, I can't literally express myself, but I can do so with these metaphors of how I talk about the wine or what I wrote in my manuscript or whatever. She
Hmm.
seems to take that sincerely. as what it is. Like, all right, if I want to get to know this guy, this is how I have to do it. I have to read the
Yes.
whole manuscript. So I
Yeah.
will. And then I'll
Yeah.
reach out to him, even though I am mad that he helped his best friend lie to my best friend, make her
Yeah.
believe she could
Which,
have this incredible new relationship when no, he has to go back to San Diego and get married.
yeah. I mean, you can easily see her being like, yeah, I'm not gonna read all of this, dude. Like, like
Mhm.
we just had like a terrible date. Like we've tried, it's not working, all of that stuff. But yeah, I think because of the way she was talking about the wine and how she wants to know all the stories. Yeah, it is this like maybe he didn't realize it, he didn't expect it, but yeah, she calls and is like, well, I read the whole thing. I did what you said. So good for her.
Mhm.
I I think that's a real sweet move.
Yeah,
For her
yeah.
there.
She's Maya seems very kind. We haven't talked much about Stephanie. Stephanie is like such an image of the cool girl. She's so smart about the wine, but like not at all in a snobby, intimidating way. She wears
Mhm.
like a French leather jacket and rides a motorcycle and lives in this cool like house with a big
God,
sunroom and everything.
I
She's really the dream girl.
Sandra Oh in general is just awesome. Like
Yes.
she's so cool. Man.
Does she play the teacher at the beginning of Big Fat Liar to
Oh,
whom
I
Frankie
don't
Muniz
know.
has to write the story and then Paul Giamatti steals the story?
Maybe.
That might
I
be
don't know off
her.
the top of my head.
It's been
Let
a
me see
while
if
since
I
you've
can
watched Big Fat Liar.
liar. Yeah, Sandra Oh is in it. She's right there in the cast. Let's see if I can. What does their Wikipedia say? Where's Sandra Oh?
There's a jillion
Command
people in
F.
Big Fat Liar in tiny little roles. But I
Sandra
think John
Oh
Cho is in it.
plays Miss Phyllis Caldwell, Jason and Kaylee's 8th grade English teacher. Yep. You nailed it. Nailed it in one. Hole in one. John Cho plays Dusty Wong, the director of the Big Fat Liar film.
Yes.
Interesting. Frankie Muniz, man. And Amanda Bynes. Wow. Okay. Anyways, enough about Big Fat Liar. Do you have any other kind of final things that you wanted to touch on or talk about with Sideways here?
I just like the look of the movie overall. The day I watched this was the day I had put up all my Halloween decorations, and I've got
Mm,
the entire apartment is orange now. Like this is normally when I would start watching spooky movies. This one's not that at all. But I put it on and it's a movie with such beautiful warmth to it. Like you see the four of them going out on like a double date and they have like a picnic blanket out in like the grapevines and watching the sunset like it and when they're in that all these little restaurants up there like it had the warmth to live up to all of the little fall autumn leave LED lights I've set up
yeah.
in my apartment now. It was really complimentary after all. And there's a fun montage when Miles and Jack first get up there when they were exploring the vineyards and going around, driving around and drinking, and it's all in like split screens.
Mm-hmm.
That's just fun editing.
That's an interesting one. I loved the emus in that, and
Yes.
then it comes back
God, they're going
when
through like Solvang and all these beautiful, particular California towns.
yeah, but the joke of the emus comes back later on in the film when Jack shows up naked after almost being caught by the one dude. He's like, man, I even had to run through a field of emus. or ostriches or something. Yeah, I forget what, but God, so funny. Well, yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it. It might not be my
Mhm.
personal cup of tea, but I thought it was a good film.
Nice.
It has some laugh out loud moments, some good genuine emotion. Well, like I
Yeah.
said, good like bookends to the film where it starts by someone knocking on the door, being like woken up and interrupted, and then the end. It's Miles knocking on Maya's door, hoping to start a new opportunity.
Yeah.
Just a good way to bookend
Well crafted.
that film. Indeed. Yes. So now that we've done that, let me pull up Bingo on screen here.
I took a look. I don't think we've.
Yeah, I don't think we have
got
anything.
We brush up against No Time to Eat Breakfast, but in this case, it's like we refuse to stop and have a full mom's birthday brunch.
Woke up early and no sex scene set to. Well, there is a sex scene set to music, but not in the same way that the square is like meant for.
And one of the nights when Jack is out with Stephanie and it's just Miles left to his own devices, he like goes to the corner store and just like very mundanely buys a Barely Legal, and you see him sitting up there in the hotel room just reading it. Just like reading it like it's any other magazine. Like it's just
I
car
read it
and
for the
driver.
articles. Right. God. Falls asleep writing it too. Like
not sexual at all. Pants fully buckled.
I mean, Barely Legal porn in and of itself is kind of not, but that's kind of the idea, right? He's trying to find something that excites him, right? In the most like dangerous, obscure, dirty way, right? Of like, ooh, this is gross.
Yeah, the fact that it's like an extra,
and he falls asleep.
Right, the fact that it's an extra salacious pornographic magazine makes it even funnier how absolutely blasé the experience is.
Anyways, so no update on Bingo with all of that. So bringing it back over here. Cool. Melissa, let's talk recommendations. If people enjoyed this film, what else might they recommend? Or what else might they like that you would recommend?
One of my favorite informative podcasts, when it's not just like comedy bullshit, is a show called Decoder Ring that takes things in culture and sort of digs into them and demystifies them. Like, what's the deal with bland hotel art? What's the story behind ice cream trucks? All sorts of stuff like that. And they had an episode from May 3rd, 2022 called The Sideways Effect that is about this movie's effect on the wine industry. One of the iconic lines of it is when they're about to go out on this double date and Jack is trying to get Miles to like lighten up and play along. And he's like, don't be your like sad sack wine snob self tonight. Don't drink too much and don't be too hoity toity about it. If they want to drink Merlot, we're going to drink Merlot. And he's like, I am not drinking any fucking Merlot.
Yeah.
The episode, this Decoder Ring episode is about, did that line have an effect on Merlot sales? And it talks to these people in the wine business and these like economists who looked at Sideways' effect on wine sales in the years to come. They're like, Merlot did take a hit, but Chardonnay, which is also discussed, which is like very briefly, neutrally mentioned in the movie, also took a hit. What's the deal there? And it looks, the ultimate finding is that Sideways didn't scare people off of like boring basic wines. It more opened them up to considering more challenging wines. People weren't like, oh, I can't drink Merlot. Merlot's for dorks. They're like, I have liked Merlot, but what else would I like? Give me a Cab Sav. Like, it's getting people to expand their palate. Like, it was good for the average wine drinker.
That's cool.
Learning to not only drink more wine, but drink more different types of wine instead of just the same type everywhere you go. So that's a really interesting episode and a podcast I love overall.
That's interesting. That was also something I remember in the tagline of Drops of God, which also recommend. for you guys to go check out if you're interested in wine. We covered it here on the review show episode 131. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I looked this up. We read the original manga, Drops of God, which is about a famous sommelier who dies and leaves his millions and millions of dollars worth wine collection to either his child, his adult estranged child, or his pretty much adopted protege. Like the two of you have to compete. Which one of you knows me better, knows the wine better, really has the love and interaction with wine better to win the whole collection. And then that was turned into an Apple TV Plus show earlier this year.
Yeah. But there's something I remember when we were reading that manga, or like the description also said something along the lines of like the manga that influenced the wine industry. And, right. So who knows what that means exactly, but I remember a similar tagline on that one. So go check those out.
Recommend there's a movie called Bottle Shock from, I don't know, sometime in the mid 2000s and 2010s. This stars the precious Alan Rickman as this wine critic who, this is set in the 70s when the California wine culture is just getting started and it's really not taken seriously compared to like the French wines. And Alan Rickman is this critic and wine expert. I think he owns a little wine shop, and he stages this competition. We're going to take some of the best California wines and some of the best French wines in a blind taste test and see, does California really know what they're doing? And this is the story of, like the Chateau Montelena Chardonnay that like put what California wine country on the map. Also stars Chris Pine as the son of that vintner. Pretty fun movie, and not really anything to do with wine very much. But if you just want more of adult male friendship and goofing around while they go on a trip, The Trip. The Trip is a series of movies. I think in England they were aired as like long TV, like 8 episodes of TV that then got compressed down into like 2-hour movies, starring Steve Coogan and another guy whose name I don't remember because he wasn't in any of the Night at the Museum films. But they play themselves, kind of lightly fictionalized versions of themselves, going on various trips. There's like The Trip, the trip to Spain, the trip to Greece, the trip to Italy, wherever. I've only watched the original The Trip so far. Really fun. Just beautiful scenery. They're going throughout like Britain and its environs. If they get to Scotland or Ireland or Wales or anywhere around there, it's been a couple years since I've seen this, but gorgeous scenery, like a wonderful travelogue, and just these two men being friends, doing things like long Michael Caine impersonation competitions with each other, just doing Michael Caine at each other, like over dinner at some fancy little restaurant out in the moors or whatever.
Great.
I really enjoyed it. I know there's more for me to go watch. I've kind of been saving them for like, it's the dead of winter and I'm snowed inside and I need to get out in some way. I will watch the rest of the trips.
Cool. Continuing on the wine theme, this movie Uncorked on Netflix from 2020 was great. I thought it was fantastic. Go check it out. This is about a young guy whose father wants him to take over their barbecue restaurant down in Atlanta. And he's not really feeling it. He's gotten into wine recently and he wants to become a sommelier. And from what I understand, it is very difficult to become a sommelier and become a good one. And so it's about his journey, like trying to take that test and dealing with his father not really understanding wine and the culture that surrounds it, why this test is important to him, why you wouldn't want the like family legacy, all that stuff. But it was a fantastic movie. It stars an actor that I now really, really enjoy. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm going to butcher this, and I apologize. Momodo. That's so wrong. I don't know. I messed it up. But it's Memo Udo. Affy. Is his name. Again, I apologize for butchering that. But he's been in a number of things that I've watched recently, and I really, really enjoy him. He's also he does one of the main voices in Pixar's Elemental. He plays the like main boy friend
guy
in that. Yeah, the wet guy. But yes, go check out Uncorked if you want to stick with the wine theme on that. Something else that this oddly... Oh, one last thing that I want to mention about Uncorked. The music in Uncorked is composed by Hit Boy, who has recently been producing Nas's most recent albums, his King's Disease and Magic series of albums, which have been fantastic. So go check that stuff out. But yes, the next thing that I would recommend that I was not expecting to make a connection to with this film. This kind of reminded me of Adaptation, the Nicolas Cage film. Early on when I was describing the film, and I kind of mentioned that at one point when he's describing his manuscript, he references some like mystery novel writer and how those mysteries just kind of end up going nowhere. Like that was like it felt true in a way that the movie didn't have like a climactic ending, right? There's not some big fight scene at the wedding and everyone like, right, there's nothing like that. The wedding happens, the confrontation happens with his ex, it goes better than expected, nothing really comes of it, and then he like kind of moves on with his life, and that's it. And so I just thought it was like an interesting kind of meta circle back on that, whereas in Adaptation it is a movie about him writing the movie that you're watching. So it's this interesting full circle kind of feeling there. So go check it out.
Adaptation's also a movie that is on one of its levels very much about orchids. So it's another movie to watch if you want to learn a lot about a specific sub thing.
Yeah.
Where the movie's not about that, but the characters are really invested in this one skill, this one field, and sort of secondhand you pick up that knowledge. I like when a movie can do that. When I can just pick up vocabulary words for use in some future scenario from a movie.
Yeah. So there you go. That's what I would recommend. Let me see. When did we cover Adaptation? That's what I want to...
that was just earlier this year. We did that for our annual National Treasure Weekend, where we cover a film starring Nicolas Cage.
That was from episode 260. So just over 10 episodes ago. So go check that out. But yeah, that I think covers our recommendations for next week. I kind of already mentioned it already. It's the end of the month, so we will be continuing our coverage of Hellboy, Mike Mignola's Hellboy. We read the first 3 volumes last month, so this next week we will be reading volumes 4 through 6. These are available on Comixology, Comixology Unlimited if you have the subscription version of that, or you can go check out your local comic book store. I'm sure your library might have them. My partner and I just went yesterday to get our library cards. So
cool.
Fun, yeah. But yeah, that is what we will be up to next week. However, Melissa, I have my pitches for the first weekend in October.
Yes.
Spooky month. I mean, I guess spooky month is kind of already started since we're covering Hellboy next week. But
yeah, we're gonna have 6 straight weeks of spooky, book ended on either end by some Hellboy.
Yes. So I have my pitches ready to go for the first official week of October, the first official spooky month. Do you want me to go ahead and pitch those to you?
Now.
Perfect. Melissa, you put in a request for some Archie horror comics. This is the week that I think in 2 weeks is the week that I think we dive into some Archie horror comics. So pitch number 1 is the proper Afterlife with Archie. This is also available on Comixology Unlimited. Let me read the little description here. It says, when Jughead's beloved pet, Hot Dog, is killed in a hit and run, Jughead turns to the only person he knows who can help bring back his furry best friend, Sabrina, the teenage witch. Using dark, forbidden magic, Sabrina is successful, and Hot Dog returns to the land of the living. But he's not the same. And soon, the darkness he brings back with him from beyond the grave begins to spread, forcing Archie, Betty, Veronica, and the gang to try to escape from Riverdale.
How many is this?
So in total, this is, I believe, 10 issues.
Okay.
Stick with me here, because there is a volume 1 where you can read the first 5.
Okay.
But the next 5 issues, which are also available on Comixology Unlimited, are not collected in a single volume. So you have to read them as single issues, but all 10 are on there. So 10 issues, and that's all of them that they've made. Pitch number 2. Let me pull this up here in the app. Come on, buddy.
Did you say that? My headphones blipped out for a second. Did you say the name of pitch number 2 already?
I have not. I'm pulling it up right now. Pitch number 2 is called Jughead, the Hunger. Let's see here. See the series. Let's see. Can I get the where is the full thing here? How does that say one shot special? I don't want to do that. Where is the volume 1 description? Ebook details. Come on, give me the thing. Oh, they don't have a good description. Let's see if they have it here somewhere. I'll read this one then. It says, Jughead, the Hunger. Jughead Jones has always had an insatiable appetite. But what if his hunger came from a sinister place? When a murderous menace is on the prowl, taking the lives of some of the most well-known and esteemed inhabitants of Riverdale, Jughead and his family's dark legacy comes to light. This is so if Afterlife with Archie is more of a zombie story, this is a werewolf story.
Oh, okay. Different flavors.
Jughead the Hunger. Yeah. So this one, what does my notes say here? This one, I believe, is 13 issues total. And these are also all available on Comixology Unlimited. I believe that second volume, there's 3 volumes on Comixology Unlimited. So for a total of 13 issues there. So yeah, that is pitch number 2. Pitch number 3. This one is a little bit different because there were there's been a couple of like Archie horror titles, but the first two that I mentioned, those were like the longer, like here's a good chunk of them. Pitch number 3 is actually 2 different titles together, is what I will say. So this is, where did it go here? This is Vampironica and Blossoms 666. Again, these are all available on Comixology Unlimited for you guys to read. Let's see, Vampironica. Let me read the description for that. It says, when Veronica is bitten by a centuries-old vampire, her thirst for blood threatens to turn Riverdale to a haven for the undead. The undead. Will she put an end to the vampire threat or give in to her bloodlust? This is only 5 issues, which is why I paired it with Blossoms 666. Let me read the description for this one, which says, Cheryl and Jason Blossom are a pair of seemingly normal kids in Riverdale. They're wealthy, popular, and likable, but they also harbor a deep, dark secret. One of the Blossom twins is the Antichrist.
Wow.
But both want the title, and no one in Riverdale is safe. So this is also a 5-issue, just 1 volume thing here. So there you go. Pitch number 1, Afterlife with Archie. Pitch number 2, Jughead the Hunger. Pitch number 3, Vampironica and Blossoms 666.
I really appreciate how much variety there is. I didn't know how deep Archie horror went. This is a great breadth of topics we could have. Really admirable.
To be honest, this is kind of it. We've already covered Sabrina the Teenage Witch here on the review show very, very early on in the podcast. Yeah. It's been one of our favorites since rating that. But besides that and these, like that's kind of it. There's not really much else to the Archie horror.
New things coming out. One of them written by Jordan Morris, who you'll remember from Bubble. Mm-hmm. Remember the audio drama turned graphic novel Bubble? He wrote a story called Pop's Chocolate Shop of Horrors.
Yeah,
that I think might be published in some, I don't know exactly what format. It's standalone compendium. Don't know for sure. So it still happens. And I've been intrigued by the concept of doing this. So I would like to start right there at the beginning with the most iconic of the titles. Let's read Afterlife with Archie.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah. Afterlife with Archie is fantastic. I own the first volume of this. It is a fantastic book. Let me pull up here. It is written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, who also wrote the Sabrina the Teenage Witch comics. Also stopped writing this and Sabrina to then go write the Riverdale show. So if you're a fan of the Riverdale show, you might want to check these out. But with some fantastic artwork by Francesco Francavilla, who makes some just great artwork. So I'm excited. Afterlife with Archie for Spooky Month. Yeah, good stuff there. So cool. Next week, Hellboy volumes 4 through 6, and then after that, Afterlife with Archie, volume 1 and issues 6 through 10. So good stuff. But I think that about wraps us up for this week. So, Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
I still have accounts on the platforms having been known as Instagram and Twitter at Wilkywit, WILKYWIT. And it's also on, you can find me in a lot of places that haven't been updated in a while, but do still exist. My podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, show I host with my brother Jams, talking about weird old kids shows you feel like only you remember. We will eventually have to get to Codename Kids Next Door on there.
Absolutely. That's a great one. Cool. Well, yeah, if you guys would like to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on most of the social media places. If you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts at most places, if not at the Whatnauts official. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got plenty more videos for you to check out right over there. So please go like, share, and subscribe in all the places. That would help us out a ton. But yeah, this has been number 271 of the review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.